during Advent, there's this weird tension between what is in our world, in the landscape of our homes, of how we celebrate this season, to the reality of what, the beauty of what Advent is. And so in this Advent season, we're going to be exploring what it means to live in between hard moments and how we are journeying through them. The tension of the present moment in this reality right now is that we are all made up of very beautiful moments, but we are all kind of calcified in hard moments. I'd probably bet that every one of us in this room, when I said, name a moment that has shaped you, each one of us had a moment that jumped in our head like immediately. Regardless of whether we want to share that moment, but we can kind of name that moment or moments that were just very significant seasons. But not only are we going to name the past, we're also going to name the hopeful future that is in front of us. One that engages our lives in a way that brings about our longings and our hopes for our communities. Because the in-between moments, I think, are the most difficult, because you're trying to hold it all together, and also you're trying to be formed in some way of this reshaping of identity. So I think of like on a journey of deconstructing our faith. If you're, the journey between deconstructing your faith and reconstructing your faith, the middle part, I think, is the most difficult. I think a lot of people just get in the middle part and they're like, I'm an atheist. You're like, screw it, I'm done. And it's like, I think it's because I don't want to say people get in that spot because they give up, but I just think it's a really arduous journey when you're starting to like untangle all the things from your faith's past. Grieving a loss of a loved one and learning a new reality without them. Living from a pre-pandemic world to a post-pandemic world. What the church used to be and what the church is no longer. And we're in that in-between. In the Old Testament, there is a section of, I'm probably going to kick this coffee at some point, but it's dark in here, right? In the Old Testament, there's a section of major and minor prophets, and we've given them that label of major and minor. It's not that one of them was more important than the other. But these were people, when we think of prophets, we oftentimes think of like fortune tellers, like people that tell the future. That is not who they were particularly. They were religious people, they were spiritual people, and also political people. They were deeply entrenched into the kingdom, the earthly kingdom, and like they were advisors to the king. But if you look at when prophets began to show up in Scripture, they began to show up in the in-between moments, and the moments that were the scariest for the Israelite people. That's when prophets showed up. You're back. We have to behave now. During Thanksgiving, as most of y'all probably know, my family, we traveled to Florida, and it's a long way to get to where we live in Niceville on the Panhandle, because you have to drive through Atlanta and Charlotte. There are, if you can imagine being in the car with us, which I don't want you to because it's horrific and painful. But there are a lot of fights. There are a lot, are we there yet? Isaac would ask, where are we? South Carolina. 2 seconds later, where are we? I'm like, South Carolina? Why are we in Georgia? Settle down. There's a lot of, you pack snacks and you're like, here's a snack. They eat the snack, and then 2 seconds later, I want another snack. And it's like, I don't have enough supply to keep this up. And you begin to think, is going to Florida really worth it? Going through this long car ride, and the answer is 100% absolutely. It's worth it once you get with your family. And that's how I describe prophets, are the kind of people that just get on the car ride. They're really like, I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to tell you, you're going to Florida. Remember, you're going to Florida. It's going to be okay. And like they're living through like the yelling and the screaming and the disobeying and the faithlessness and then they get out. Once you're in Florida, they get off the van and they get in somebody else's chaos and they go. That's a prophet. A prophet. No one wanted to be a prophet. So Isaiah, this year, I'm really interested in going through the series and thinking about Isaiah the prophet, which is a prophet we typically read a lot of during the Advent season, who is going alongside Israel through a very difficult season. Seasons as in 100 years, a very long and painful devastating path lies in front of Israel. We typically read Isaiah in terms of New Testament prophecies of prophesying about Jesus. And my approach to Isaiah this time around is to read Isaiah for Isaiah and to not implicate my Christian thoughts about prophecies and whatnot. Isaiah existed in a time when they were being decimated by Assyria and then later on Babylon. If you have the geographical map of Israel, Assyria and Babylon wanted Egypt, and the pathway to get to Egypt was through Israel. And so ideally, this wasn't really about Israel. It was just about they were in the way of these Assyrians and Babylonians getting to Egypt. But the problem is they were creating many atrocities to the people along the way. And this is the life of Isaiah as he walks alongside the Israelite people who are trying to understand what their way of life will be after families are separated, families are killed, cities are destroyed. Who are we to be as a people? And so Isaiah sought to affirm them that God was not done with them, that God would restore them from whatever was destroyed. Isaiah, I think it's important to note, is the most quoted prophet in the Old Testament. And then the Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were discovered a couple hundred years prior to Jesus being born, was one of the most prominent scrolls, in their reading as a community. And so, Isaiah has been a central book in the life of Jewish people, and it's been a central book for Christians as well. And I think the reason that it's been such a central book is because it is a book that really carries people through the in-between stages of life. Is here's the oppressor, here's the season of life that is hard, and Isaiah gives us the strength to kind of see the other side of restoration and reordering. And for the New Testament, they were under Roman occupation, so it's what is our reality post-Roman occupation? How will we get past this moment? And Isaiah writes to a troubled Israel and says that a shoot will come up from an injured stump. And I love this. This is such a beautiful imagery out of the stump of Jesse. And if you think about a stump where death resides, and you think about those moments and seasons of our lives where we're just, we've had many micro seasons, and we've probably had larger seasons where we're just kind of looking at something and just how am I ever going to get past this moment? Maybe it's transitioning from a job, maybe it's reconstructing your faith journey, or the death of a loved one, or a new job, or failure. You're always kind of looking at this and you're going, that is a former tree where death resides. And Isaiah paints this image, no, to you it looks like death, but out of that stump, a tree will come forth. To give them this image of this reordering. And he paints this image that there will be this radical reordering of creation where the wolf shall live with the lamb. I feel like you need to have parentheses and won't eat the lamb. That's what we're assuming here. The leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and the lion. Kid, baby goat, right, Tim? Just in case anybody were so far removed. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, the young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put its hand on the adder's den. This idea that the predator and the prey shall no longer hunt for one another, but will live in harmony. And this is a radical reordering for Israel, because all Israel cared about is how do we as a nation live in this moment and survive. And Isaiah is saying to them, this isn't just about you after this thing. This is about the world. This is about peace. This is about shalom and restoration of lives, that those who are in conflict might live in harmony. Can you imagine such a place? Is it possible to understand our faith in a season in our lives, and then to understand what something might have meant in a season of our faith lives, and then in another season to see it another way? Is it possible to live again after a failure, a loss? Or if we think more communally, as we think about social issues and women's autonomy or immigration and gun issues, is it possible for our society to be reordered? And I can so often be cynical, and of course we can point to, again, news cycles that really affirm the opposite. But Isaiah was the prophet on that car ride where we're all screaming and we're like another snack. Are we there yet? We're never going to get there. And Isaiah was that person who is always like, remember the destination. Remember where you're going. You're going to Florida. Like, grandparents will take care of your kids for a few hours of your life. It's going to be good. Remember these things. And Isaiah was the one that really, but there's this part of us that wants to say, but there was all this gun violence the past couple weeks. There was this, there's that, there's this. And Isaiah's like, I know. But there's something that says to us, and we think about the seasons of our life that have formed and shaped us, that we go, maybe there's something there. That the hard moments in my life have dramatically shaped who I am and my identity, and if God can do that for me, maybe He could do it for the world. This morning we sang the song, Come Thou Long Expected Jesus, and if you go, and I encourage you during this Advent season to go and take that hymn and to walk with it, because you get this sense that Charles Wesley was reading Isaiah when he wrote these words. And he wrote these words in the 18th century. Come thou long expected Jesus, born to set thy people free from our fears and sins, release us. And my favorite part is I just wish it could stop. Let us find our rest in thee. Like coming to the song, tired and weary, let us find our rest. And Wesley draws upon the New Testament, and he draws upon Isaiah, and claiming the promise in the midst of great disparity. Because in his time, there was a very great disparity upon wealthy people and poor people. And he wrote this song in a sense of bringing about that there's this hopefulness that disparity would lessen. And it draws upon our deepest longings for redemption in our lives and the lives of others. In our culture, we tend to blend, we can't. If Bradley was here, Bradley would be like amening me, because Bradley is like our Christmas. I don't want to say guru. He's not here. But we tend to blend Christmas and Advent together. But on a Christian calendar, Advent is the season in our life where we really focus on what am I expecting God? How am I longing for God in my life and in the world? And then Christmas is the celebration of God coming, of that expectation that God is with us. And Christmas is, so you have Advent, and then on Christmas Day, you have the season of Christmas, and you have how many days of Christmas? 12. That's where the 12, that's good. 12 days of Christmas. And so and that's where the gifts come in. Traditionally you would give a gift for the 12 days of Christmas. Of course, we don't tell our kids that because that's a lot of gifts. But if we look at our calendar like that, our breath and our breathing is that we breathe this. We breathe this, going through seasons of darkness and longing and expectation, but also we go through seasons of Easter and Christmas, of seasons that our longings are made clear and God has come to be among us. We say it in the great Thanksgiving that Christ has died, Christ is risen, and Christ will come again. Will is not here yet, but will come again. This longing angst among us. So my hope as a church is maybe at the beginning you had that moment of angst or that story that is arising to the top for you of where the question is unanswered, but it's being formed and you're in the in-between and there's a lot of tension. That's what the Advent season is about. And so my hope, as I drive in the car with my kids screaming and yelling and Kia and I trying to keep things together, my greatest hope in those moments is to safely arrive. And so those are the moments where I have to pay attention the most. And so my hope is that we might pay attention to those moments of our life where we are in the in-between, paying attention to what we are longing for and waiting for. That we might be reminded in our arduous journey that the destination that lies ahead is beautiful. Kate Bowler, Kia, posted a picture of this, said that life is beautiful, life is hard.